All right, it is 2 minutes after 10. So in the interest of time, because we've got a very full agenda today, we've got wonderful speakers with us. So Justine Connolly, if you don't mind beginning our wonderful workshop this morning, I'm going to let you take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you, Andrea. This would not be happening without you behind the scenes, so we thank you. My name is Justine Connolly, and I am the Associate State Director for AARP First Coast. That means several counties in the north, and caregiving is one of our not only initiatives, but places where we try to engage and provide resources for our members and anyone else that's dealing with caregiving. And we have the privilege of being the sponsor of the Caregiver Coalition in this seminar. So with that, we're going to move right into our seminar for today, and I will be your moderator. No, like I said, I'm not Candace, and she gets to be out for today. Yay, Candace, and hopefully caring for herself. And so we want to jump right in to caring during the holidays. And so I'd like to personally thank you for joining us on a Saturday morning. And we have a power-packed hour. And so we're going to get right into it. I'd like to begin with our housekeeping items. The first thing is the session has been recorded to be posted on our website for those who could not attend. Please remain muted. The host will unmute you or those with questions during the question and answer period. Turn on speaker view, which is in the top right of your screen, and questions will be answered once we reach the Q&A period. Due to the number of attendees, we may run into technical difficulties, so please be patient with us while we work them out. And so with that, we're going to jump right into our panel. We have a very, not only astute, but very, the brain trust with this group of women. We are in for a treat, and they are not only professionals, but they are good at what they do, and they have been serving in our community for many, many years. So with that, with the coping with the holidays, our first person to be our presenter for today she is no stranger. When I think caregiving, one of the first people to come to my mind is Toula Wootan. And Toula is the CEO for Toula's Tips for Caregivers. And she can be found at www.toulasTipsForCaregiving.com. And she'll say a little bit more about that. So with that, we'd like to welcome Toula Wootan. Take it away, Toula.
Thank you, Justine. And to echo what Justine said, thank you to everyone who decided to come in and tune into this webinar today. I know it's Saturday morning during the holidays, but that's what we're here to address, because caregiving in itself has its challenges, but then you throw the holidays at it and we add a few more challenges. So we're going to try to help you today, support you, and encourage you. So thank you. I'll take the next slide, please. So we all know that caregiving by itself during normal times has its own stressors, its own challenges. You have the physical stresses of taking care of your loved one, lifting, moving, transferring. And unfortunately, back injuries and shoulder injuries are all too common with caregivers, mainly because they often don't learn the proper body transfer techniques. Family stresses, boy, is that ever something. And those are usually amplified during the holidays. So we'll talk about that a little bit. None of us come from that perfect family background where everybody gets along all the time. And when you add different family members in who have their own opinions about how things should be done, and maybe you're not doing them that way, that adds a little stress. The social stress we'll talk about a little bit later in the presentation, but as you might imagine, isolation is really the biggest stressor in that area. The emotional stresses almost can't even be described. You're dealing with somebody you love. You have your ups and downs with them. You have your background with them, your history with them. That doesn't really go away during caregiving time. And you're also watching them decline, which causes, of course, depression and sense of loss. That's really huge for caregivers. Financial stresses can also be big. 47% of caregivers report using up all or most of their savings during their caregiving role. The average amount that caregivers spend per year on their caregiving role is $7,000, and that's an AARP stat, I'm happy to say. Next slide, please. So you've got all these stresses under normal circumstances, and oh boy, here come the holidays. And as the song says, I listened to it this morning, it's the most wonderful time of the year. Well, how many of us really feel that way during the holidays? There come those public commercials that make everything look so perfect on TV. You've got your happy family with the most beautiful table and the perfect meal, and don't they look like they're all just getting along really good? Who has this? Who's that really real for in real life? Like I say, it isn't real for my life, and it isn't for most people. So that's an added stressor. You're wanting things to be perfect. Caregivers want everything to be perfect for the person that they're taking care of and for any other family members that come along. Let me just say, take that stress off of you. It is not always the happiest time of the year. Then there's the added tasks that come with the holidays, the additional cooking, shopping, decorating, cleaning your house if you're expecting others to come and stay with you. All of that adds to everything else that you're already doing, which adds for a little bit more of a stressful time. Next slide, please. So what we're going to talk about today is ways to reduce stress during the holidays. One of the things I always like to tell caregivers is you don't have to go to every activity. Find the things that are most meaningful to you and to the person that you take care of. Focus in on those things. Find the things that are the least exhausting for you and the most enjoyable for you and your loved one. This year, it's especially important to stay away from large gatherings and celebrations. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we adjust, as we come to addressing this pandemic that we're going through. I believe in simplifying. Who said you have to have that big perfect meal that we saw on that table spread? Have a meal that everybody's going to enjoy. Did something happen to the slides just then? There we go. They came back. But make it simple. Choose a few items that everybody likes. It doesn't, again, have to be the 5-course meal. What I do, and what a lot of people do these days, is purchase all or part of your meal from a grocery store or a restaurant. It's already pre-cooked, and all you have to do is heat it up. And then start, of course, asking family members to bring different things to the meal. Again, keep it simple. You've heard the expression, less is more. I believe less is more during this time of year, and you don't have to have everything that you think you do. Next slide, please. There we go. So again, to reduce some of the holiday stress, let's take away some of these unrealistic expectations that are out there. Take a ride with your loved one. Do things that are new, that are maybe more meaningful, and aren't the things that you always did. Take the stress off of you, I guess is what I'm trying to say, with those unrealistic expectations. Things don't have to be the way that you see them on TV or the pressure that you put yourself for them to be. New traditions, again, like taking a ride with your loved one to look at the holiday lights. We've already done that a couple of times this year, and it's just really a relaxing, enjoyable time. Maybe a movie night. Well, you can't get enough of those Hallmark holiday movies, can you? They're all got the same plot, but they're all sweet and they're all happy, and I admit to watching a few of those myself. Do things that, again, are meaningful for you and your loved one. Maybe it's bringing out the old photo albums and looking at pictures of Christmas past. Those things are enjoyable. One of the things I guess I want to say here is the happiness of your loved one's holiday and any of your family members' holiday isn't upon you. Take that stress off of yourself. There's only so many things you can control. Focus on what you can control. Let go of the rest. the serenity prayer comes to mind. You know, there's only so many things you can change. Change the things that you can if you need to, and let go of the rest. One of the things that I really believe is super important is connecting with other caregivers. I've always believed that a caregiver should have someone else they can call, commiserate with, share their joys with. Connectivity is so important for all of us under any circumstances. It's really the key to our happiness, but particularly during this time, and for caregivers. So find someone you can connect with, and we'll talk about easy ways to do that in a minute. Next slide, please. Again, I like this picture because it is a mother-daughter bringing out the old photo albums, looking at maybe pictures of holidays past that they were able to enjoy. That's a relaxing, fun time. It's a time when you can bond with the person that you're taking care of, focusing on one-on-one time with them, and not necessarily the task of caring for them, but just being with them. Next slide. Anybody that knows me and has listened to me or any of my radio shows for any length of time knows that I always focus on self-care. I always tell people you have got to put yourself first. And one of the ways that you can do that is by getting a break. Get someone to come in and provide you respite. Whether it's someone from an agency that you employ to come in and give you a break 2 to 3 times a week for a couple of hours at a time. And by the way, if you're looking for ideas for good Christmas presents for yourself, ask family members for that for Christmas. That's something practical and something you could really use and would really help you. You need a holiday break too. So ask others for help. The other thing that you can do, and I have had a few people take advantage of this lately, if you need 5 to 7 days off from your loved one, from caring from your loved one, a lot of the assisted living facilities in town will provide respite temporarily. They'll let you place your loved one in their facility for temporary, just so that you can again get respite. Self-care, we're going to talk about the importance again of proper nutrition. Our body needs the right fuel to keep going. Caregiving takes a lot out of you physically. We've already got some stress going on, and we know that chronic stress is also linked to increased inflammation in the body. So if you can, I know it's really hard during this time of year, try to avoid those foods that have all that processed sugar, refined sugars, or high in fat, the things that are going to cause more inflammation in your body. Get enough sleep, eat right. Again, just take good care of yourself. Next slide. I just really like this picture because to me it says what we really need to be focusing on during the holidays. It's not all the activities and the extra stress and the people that may be causing more stress in your life. It's all about rekindling joy, love, and hope again. So try to focus on those things during the holidays. Next slide. I mentioned that I was going to talk about isolation, so I'll hop to the next slide. I know I only have about a minute left. Isolation is a problem anytime during the holidays, but you know, my biggest message is don't isolate, be together with others. And now we're being told to isolate because of this pandemic. Next slide. This COVID that we are going through has caused a lot of mental health issues for caregivers and for seniors. As a matter of fact, again, another AARP study has said that the mental health of about 44% of caregivers has been very negatively impacted. They're depressed, they're sad, they're angry, and about 50% of the seniors that they care for are experiencing the same thing. So again, the self-care is more important than ever. You've got to take good care of yourself during this time. Next slide. All right, new ways to celebrate. And I'm going to go through this quickly. Because the risk for COVID is high, it is so important. And I don't know why the picture went over that a little bit, but it's really important for us to find other ways to celebrate. There are digital ways we can do it, and I know that it's a huge change. Adjusting our typical holiday traditions does cause a sense of loss and disappointment for so many people, but it's so important that we do that right now. The risk really isn't worth it. Next slide. Ways to safely connect. We've all got digital activities and devices with us these days. And yes, seniors are becoming more tech savvy these days. I love this picture of the little lady having a FaceTime with some of her family members. Phone calls, FaceTime, Skype, Zoom, they're all easier than you might think, and seniors are learning to do this. Next slide. Group video chats. How many of you have done a happy hour with a bunch of friends via Zoom? I have. A lot of people are doing their holiday time, their holiday meals even, through Zoom or any of the other digital group video chats. It's not what you want, it's not optimal, but it's still a way to be with those you love. Next slide. And I guess one of the things I want to say is, remember, this is temporary. There's hope out there. Hope is on the horizon. There's a vaccine just around the corner. So adjust for this year. Do what we have to do to stay safe. And also remember, you're not alone. Reach out for help. The Caregiver Coalition and all the members and all the organizations here in town are here to help you. And that's what we want to do. So happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you, Toula. I know it's very difficult to squeeze all this in a very short period, but we do appreciate you being willing to do so. And remember, we're going to do our question and answers, Q&A at the very end. So please not only stay with us, but put your questions in the chat and we'll keep on going. Our next speaker is Rachel Weinstein, and she'll be talking about getting through grief during the holidays. Rachel is a part of the Jacksonville Center for Grief and Loss, and you can find her at jackscenterforgrief@gmail.com. And what we will do is we will send you all this information and contact information in your follow-up email. So thank you. Take it away, Rachel.
Thank you, Justine. Hi, everybody. Welcome. I love hearing you, Toula. You always share such important information. And for sure, we have some grief happening, not just during the holiday period, but this pandemic has certainly stirred up a lot of grief. So I want to first welcome you and thank you for listening to me today. The Jacksonville Center for Grief and Loss is my private practice. I also work in the community in senior services industry, and I've been happy to be with Baptist for the last 3 years. I'm making a professional change, and I'll be moving to another organization in the community doing much the same thing, marketing and educating about senior services. And so I'm really happy to have two passions indulged. So there's my information. Let's just go to the next slide and I'll get into this discussion about the holidays and grief. So when we say grief, when we say holidays, what do we mean exactly? Grief is so much more than death and dying. It's actually a natural reaction to any loss or change in anything or anyone that's significant to you. And so it's much more broad than bereavement. When we talk about bereavement, that connects generally to physical death, and loss through death. But grief is much more broad and expansive. And certainly in caregiving, there is a lot that you are grieving. There's a lot that you've lost. Sleep, I can think of for one thing, but in terms of your role, your routine, your relationship with the person for whom you're caring, perhaps your relationship to others, your availability for your partner, for your friends. So those are all just a few changes that relate to caregiving and how caregiving is connected to grief. And certainly when it comes to holidays, when I say holidays, a lot of people just think about Christmas and New Year's and Thanksgiving, but actually they're simply days of significance to you. It could be a national holiday or a birthday, an anniversary of a loss. It could be an anniversary of a wedding anniversary, etc. But I put every month of the year below here because I just want to point out how pervasive these holidays are. Every single month of the year, somebody is either grieving trying to get through a personal day of significance, or there's a national day of significance, or maybe both. So January, what do we have? New Year's Eve. February, Valentine's Day. Not sure about March. What is March? People are probably muted. Is that when St. Patrick's Day?
St. Patrick's Day.
Yes, St. Patrick's Day. Spring, of course, April. We've got the
Easter.
summer months. What's that?
Easter.
Yes, thank you, Easter. May, not sure about May.
Memorial
Right?
Day, it could be.
Okay, that's right, May.
Mother's Day, yeah.
Mother's Day, that's right. We've got 4th of July. We've got back to school time, Labor Day, and back to school, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas. Every month there's something, and those are just national holidays. So I know that as I work with families or parents who've lost a child, one really difficult time of the year is back to school and all of those commercials, Halloween and those memories. So everybody is kind of stirring a different pot with a personal loss, whether it's related to a national holiday or to a personal holiday of remembrance. So I want to just encourage you to be a little more expansive about how you're thinking about grief and recognizing how it could be impacting you today. Sometimes when I'm working with someone who's grieving, the day, let's say your loved one became ill on a certain day, let's say it's September 12th, or a loved one died on that day. The 12th of every month could be significant for a while. So the 12th of the next month might stand out to you. You might not even recognize why you're feeling particularly tender on a certain day, or even a season when the weather changes. For me, I experienced a big loss, and I just remember I remember driving my car during the worst of my grief about my loved one, and it was fall, and the leaves were kind of blowing up and circling in front of my car. And now every time I see that, every time I feel the weather changing, even though I love fall, it's painful. It's a reminder. So even something as simple of the time of year and the weather and the season can inspire a kind of pangs of grief. So I want to talk a little bit about how to maneuver through grief and the holidays. If you could show the next slide, please. Okay. So what do we do? First of all, I want you to give yourself permission to ignore the day if you need to. It really is okay to do something different than usual, something different than what others might be expecting you to do or asking you to do. It really is okay. And one way that I encourage people to share that is just to say, this year, I need to do something different. This year, doing the same thing won't work for me. If you stick with saying what will or what won't work for you, nobody can argue with that. Nobody can argue with the fact that you simply say that doesn't work for me, all right? So you don't have to make anything up. You don't have to get into details. You can simply say this year, I need this. It doesn't have to be this year, but today I need to do something different. You don't even need to give necessarily a heads up. You can simply not pick up your phone that day. If it's a personally difficult day for you, you can go within a bit. It's okay. Of course, I encourage people to reach out for support, but sometimes we all need to kind of go into a bit of a cave for a minute and heal. It's all right. So the second thing, I want you to consider personalizing a way to honor your loss or your loved one in a way that has personal meaning to you. So let me give you an example. When I lost a loved one, he had a recipe for this cake. He loved to make this cake for his own birthday, and he liked to make it for my birthday. And so I found the recipe. It had his writing on it, and I decided that every year on my birthday, I would bake that cake, but I did something a little different. I took a piece for myself, and then I gave the cake with an explanation, because it had a piece missing, to someone who had treated me in a way that he would have loved that year. someone who'd been good to me in a way that I think that he would have really approved of. And I kept that that ritual up for quite a while. Eventually, I didn't keep doing it, but I know that for those early years, it helped me have something, make meaning out of that day and to honor him. And people were always touched when I told them why I was giving them a cake with a piece out of it. So, but find a way that works for you. It may be making a special dish that your loved one enjoyed, or it may simply be something as simple as having a private time to light a candle and reflect on a memory, or look at a photograph, or talk about your loved one, or make a toast to them, to set a place at the table for them. And even if they're not physically with you, as certainly is the case this year with the pandemic, being able to honor them at the table or in a gathering, have everyone share a memory, a favorite memory of that loved one, or write it in a book. I have so many ideas about that, but so little time. But if anyone wants to reach out to me, of course, in the end, I know you'll have my contact information. If you're having a difficult time during a holiday period, or you anticipate one coming up, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I can help you through it. So I kind of blended this last one and the next one into each other, using a ritual to honor a loved one. It may be setting a place at the table, a space for a candle and their photo, sharing some memories, having a book, maybe. Well, of course, we're not doing this right now during the pandemic one, but let's say you're having a holiday gathering, and as people enter, they can have a book to sign with a special memory of your loved one who may not be there. Something you can reflect on later. So stories are wonderful things to reflect upon and collect. Let friends know. Friends who love you know that what would support you best. Don't be afraid to, don't just shun offers to, like, oh, let me know if you need anything. A lot of you might hear that a lot. Stop and think about the things that actually would help you. Is it doing some errands for you? Is it simply being available to talk on the phone, or to do some FaceTime? Drop off some food, or just have a cup of coffee virtually. The next one, be gentle and patient and tender with yourself. I can't emphasize this enough. Treat yourself like you would your own dear friend, your own loved one. And whether it's something small, like a lovely scented lotion, a fragrance that you enjoy. I will wear a fragrance even when I go to bed by myself. I just a perfume that I love, and sometimes it's an indulgence, just simply spritz it on my pillow, or because it pleases my senses. So treat yourself gently and kindly, particularly when you're in grief. And then last, of course, reach out for support from a professional, someone who can be objective, who's not invested in ways that would prevent them from being objective, someone who's trained that you can trust. Of course, I would be honored to be one of those people, but we've got a lot of resources here among us today. So any one of us on this panel could connect you to resources beyond what they themselves may offer. So I know that I think we're going to have time for questions afterward, but I want to thank you all for listening. Again, my name is Rachel Weinstein, and I appreciate your being here today.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Again, great information. And we have a question, so we'll wait for a Q&A to address the day-to-day operations and grief. You know, whether it's PPE, expenses around that. So we'll get to that right at the very end.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It is my pleasure to introduce Jamie Glavich, certified dementia care practitioner. And she is also the Almost Home Adult Daycare, I want to say CEO in assisted living. And so she's going to address visiting a loved one in a long-term care facility during the holidays. And this is a really, again, an important topic that we'll go further in, I think, in the new year in some new ways and talking about that. So with that, I welcome Jamie Glavich. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank
Take
you,
it away.
Justine. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Rachel, for that information on grief, because it seems like the last 9 months have been very, very difficult for a lot of families and for staff too in the assisted livings and nursing homes and hospitals. We've been suffering through the grief process as well. And it's hard to say no to families when they want to visit. Well, thank goodness, the vaccine has come. We've gotten some good practices in place through the CDC. Next slide, please. We've gotten some good practices from the CDC and some state regulations, so we're able to have visits now. Assisted living is a little bit more open than nursing homes right now, but still there are 3 things I want to remind everybody to please do. And staff has to be vigilant to make sure that you are wearing a proper mask, that you're washing your hands and using sanitizers, and that you're keeping your distance when you do visit. It's so hard not to hug your loved one, I know. But we want to be very cautious during these next few months to keep this COVID-19 away from our loved ones, from ourselves, and from our facilities and our caregivers too as well. Next slide, please. I wanted to kind of give you some just helpful hints. I'm used to teaching activities and giving information to families on how to visit Alzheimer's patients, because that's primarily who I care for, people with Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. But it's really hard to visit them, an Alzheimer's patient, just in normal circumstances. But now we have to be more creative and more aware of the close proximity and staying your distance, and how we talk and how we visit, and even when we're timed on a visit. So some of us only have 15 minutes. I wanted to just kind of give you some helpful hints to take with you so you can make the most out of your visit. When I showed my daughter the slide this morning, she just laughed and she had to go get me a pair of her warm fuzzy socks so I could show to everybody. One of the things that our residents love, the elderly, circulation is a big problem, and everyone loves a nice pair of warm fuzzy socks. It makes you feel good all the way through your heart, right, and soul. So that's something nice that you can bring to them when you're visiting, and it's something they can hold throughout the visit too, and keep their hands warm. Most of the visits are outside, and just in case there's a little nip in the air, it's helpful. I mean, you can never have too many socks, I swear. Music is really the best friend for all visits and for all of us. Music brings back all kinds of memories, good memories. There's a different part of the brain that's affected with Alzheimer's, and songs stay with people, songs and prayers. So if you even have to bring song sheets because you might not know all the words, that's something you can do. Nowadays we have our iPads and computers and phones and little cassette recorders and little iPod things that you can bring for the visit to help play the music and to really have an enjoyable experience with them. Something that my families have been doing lately, and I just thought it was the greatest thing, something so simple. Again, Toula said, keep it simple, is to do a little I love you poster. And I'm not sure that you can see it back here, but something, just a little 8.5 by 11 paper or a nice card that just says, I love you, and a picture on it, means the world to somebody waking up out of bed first thing in the morning to put beside their bed. Or even some of the facilities have been posting them up and down the hallways so that as the other caregivers and other residents are walking by, they see an I love you. And that just, again, makes you feel warm and fuzzy. One good thing too, to add on to Toula's, is to bring that old photo album that's sitting on the shelf. You can sit across the table and just flip the pages. And photo albums also spur up some memories, and it helps create, again, that warm, fuzzy feeling. It gives you something to talk about. A good visit is always about planning ahead. And so I tell families, try and plan ahead, even if you have to make a little cheat sheet on an index card to take with you. But have your tools with you, like we professionals do, because it'll give you a really good, solid, soulful and heartful visit with somebody. I believe in bringing books too. You're never too old to hear a nice Christmas carol, or just to have somebody talk to you. And our residents and to all of us, you're never too old to be read to. So you can bring a nice book, especially if you're in the middle of a good story and you want to share it with mom, dad, or husband, wife, or a friend that you're visiting. I've always used beach balls. With beach balls, always create fun. Now we don't so much toss them because of the sanitation issue, but bringing a beach ball you can put on the floor in front of you and kick it around. Again, that's creating some excitement and fun, because everybody loves to see a beach ball. And again, it's reminiscing and it's creating some activity and exercise your loved one. You know, there was a lot of isolation for our loved ones actually staying in their rooms for many, many months, and they're just now getting out among everybody else for activities. So they might need a little bit more help, kind of physical therapy, if you want to call it that, to get their body moving and their muscles moving again. So doing something like that's a good thing for them. And tell stories of recent vacations, even if you have good stories from the grocery store. How many of us go out to the store if we go out to the store, we always have a funny story to come home with. So that's a nice way to share your picture albums, is to create vacation stories. Next slide, please. Again, we have to be very creative when we're visiting, because we have to watch all the touching and hugging and closeness and the 6 feet away. But we want to do any kind of activity that we can to help create the possibility of we don't want to transmit those droplets in the air. And that way the families are feeling safe too, that are visiting, knowing that the staff members are making sure everybody's following the rules. Bringing snacks, we always want to bring something for them to eat, like a nice muffin or a piece of cake or something like that. But that can be a little iffy because you're removing masks if you're sharing with them. And one thing I suggest families to bring is maybe a milkshake. A milkshake has the top on it and you have the straw. And if your loved one is wearing a mask, they can scoop it under the mask and have a sip. So again, who doesn't love a good milkshake or a good Starbucks coffee? So another activity that we can do is a lot of fun, especially at Thanksgiving time. We pull out a piece of paper and just create a family meal. And when you're talking about the food, again, the meals are a big thing in families. Those Publix commercials like Toula talked about. Make your grocery list. Talk about what you're going to make with that turkey, or make with that ham, or if you're going to make a big pasta dinner, what do you need for those ingredients? Again, it starts that memory going, and it's an activity for you to do with them. There's a lot of things that you can download on the internet nowadays, like trivia, that you can go trivia from the 1950s, from the 1960s, from wartime, current events. A lot of different things are available for you just to have as a tool. I downloaded about 4 different quiz pages last night from the internet just to have on hand for some visits for families for this weekend. And make it a nice little holiday basket with simple items. The Dollar Tree is wonderful for holiday gifts, but if you just get like a little basket, and you can get a small little Christmas tree or a bow or a little Santa on the shelf there to come in, and again, decorating their room, whether it's with the I love you posters or anything to kind of get them in the spirit too, and remind them of the season. Again, saying prayers together. We had to stop going to our church services, and again, the isolation, and it does help to sit around and pray. That's a good stress reliever as well. And how about writing a note to other family members? How many of us are still writing notes? And it's so wonderful to go to your mailbox and open up a card or open up a note and read something from a loved one. Okay, next slide. So, you know, family visits really are essential. And since we are back to visiting, go even if you only have 15 minutes. It means the world to somebody at that moment in time. And bring your happy face. I know you're going to have a mask on, but you can see when people are smiling. You can see their eyes light up, and use your happy voice. Bring something to do. The more prepared you are for a visit, the better visit you're going to have. And please remember the 3 W's. Wear the proper mask. It has to be 2 or 3 layered. No gator masks that you see a lot of the men wear and pull down and pull back up. But it can be a handmade mask, and there's ideas on the CDC website for you to go if you wanted to make one. But I see masks everywhere now. Target and Walmart and TJ Maxx and the grocery stores, they all have masks. And make sure that you're always washing your hands and watch your distance. And when you're out in public, please, please, please wear your mask. And I hope you have a wonderful visit and a nice Christmas and New Year.
Thank you so much. That was very, very helpful. And again, I just want to remind folks of how difficult it is to pack all of this in a very, very short time to get us as much as we can in this short hour. But I hope that has been helpful for you. I've learned a lot. And so our last speaker for today is none other than Pastor Tracey Mills. She's the outreach program coordinator with Community Hospice, and she's also a pastor at Collins Chapel AME Church. And so with that, we're going to talk about finding the me in you. I like just the title by itself, Finding the Me in You. Take it away, Pastor Tracey.
Great morning, everyone. Let me first say thanks to all who are responsible for this Caregivers webinar. This year, my twin sister suffered 3 strokes. She had 2 aneurysms, and then she had to have a craniotomy. Yes, I am her caregiver. So when I was approached about this webinar, I made an organic statement of caregiving is like finding the me in you. Didn't really know what that meant. It just came out. And so it resonated, and here I am. As I am caring for my sister, I am understanding that caring for her identifies my strengths and my weaknesses. But the patience I thought I had is now called into question. Caregiving is not for the faint at heart. Caregiving for me is a journey in which I become, and I am becoming, acquainted with my inabilities, my disabilities, some liabilities, and my capabilities. Next slide. It's a journey. On a journey, it is easy to lose myself when I'm caring for my sister. I get bogged down, just as many of you probably do, get bogged down with setting appointments, picking up medicine, taking her to the doctor, going to physical therapy, speech therapy, vocational therapy, occupational therapy. I am doing and unable to connect with actually being. Caregiving is like finding the me in my twin sister, Macy. Next slide. This term may look familiar to you. This term may look a little familiar because if it read properly, it would be say ministry of presence. But I inserted the word self-presence. Ministry of presence, we have to know that has to do with grief and loss of a loved one, bereavement of that. But I inserted self-presence. Ministry of self-presence for me is the opportunity for me to become available to myself and for myself. This is a time in which I inhale and exhale. Take a note of what my wants, my needs, and my desires are, and my concerns. It's me, myself, and I. And I'm not really being superficial because I'm saying to myself that I am important. If you look at the slide, notice that being and reflecting are pointing to one another. So what does that mean? As I reflect, I am relaxed, I'm relating, and I release. Relax, relate, release. Relax, relate, release. That's what Whitney says on A Different World. Some of you ought to get that later on. Next slide. So as I relax, relate, release, then I find out that I can give the best gift. The best gift I can give myself is a hug. We hug others. I hug my sister all the time, tell her I love her. But what about hugging yourself? And I know it kind of sounds a little crazy. It doesn't look kind of fashionable. But when I hug myself, I'm encouraging myself. I'm connecting with myself. And you know what? I feel good about myself. I'm supporting myself. And I'm not feeling guilty. I am enjoying just the simple things in life. Can I tell you what I did recently? When I had to go and pick up a prescription for my sister, I got in my car. And I usually have the music playing anyway. But this time I decided, as young people say, I turned it up. I turned it up. I took it to another level. I turned up music and I played the OJ song because I heard my parents playing it a couple of weeks ago. And it says, get on board, love train, join the love train, love train. And I sang that song and I sang it wrong, didn't know the words, but I had the best time. Why? Because that's just the simple things in life. I laughed at myself because I was singing loud and wrong, out of tune, but it was fun for that moment. I often sometimes sit on my patio and I watch and listen to the birds, watch the geese as they fight and converse with one another. I look at the changing of the leaves. I inhale and then I exhale. The more I care, the more I serve, the more I minister for my sister, I become more in my element. I'm more focused on what I was created to do and created to be. Next slide, please. So I'm getting back to me. So how do I do that? Tracey, how do you do that? First, I acknowledge that I deserve care. I deserve attention. I acknowledge that I have needs. Now, don't wait for others to validate you because you might be waiting a whole 5 years before that will happen. Validate yourself. Seize the moment, seize the opportunity. I then accept myself. Accept that I know that all things are working together for my good. For those who love God and are called according to his purpose. Now, did you really think that a pastor would be on the webinar and not have a scripture? That's Romans 8:28. I attend to myself by exercising, getting the necessary rest. I never knew how important 8 hours of sleep is, or is necessary, 8 hours. I attend to my own healthcare needs. I accept help when offered. Then I pause temporarily. I pause to give thanks and honor to the creator of the universe. I pause to breathe in and breathe out. I ponder. I ponder on the great things that the creator has done. Ponder on my needs and my desires and my wants. And then what I do, I pursue. Pursue what? What do you pursue, Tracey? I pursue intentionally. I pursue that which I desire. Now I'm asking you a question. What do you desire to do? If you like painting, paint. If you like sewing, sew. If you like gardening, start with a mason jar. Might not have a time to do a whole garden, but every little bit counts. If you do not have the time, make the time. Start in small increments. The next slide. That's my twin. Now, I know you probably say, we look nothing alike. That's a joke. But that's my twin and she's doing well. She's walking, talking, she's living. I thank God for her. Caregiving is finding the me in my twin sister, Macy. Caregiving, it shapes, defines, and refines me. As I care for her, I care for myself. Because what? All things are relative. I like affirming myself. How do I do that? I say, Tracey, my mind is alert. My spirit is receptive. And my body is healthy. I think clearly. I see clearly. And I speak clearly. I am a caregiver and I will take care of myself. Remember, wear your mask, stay safe, stay healthy, but most importantly, stay with the creator of the universe. My time is up. Thank you for yours.
Thank you, Pastor Tracey. And thank you, our audience as well. And so right now, we have a few minutes for question and answers. And so if you would, please type your question into the chat. I'd like to thank all of our presenters. Of course, you did a phenomenal job, which I knew that you would, and you're always very, very good. So here we're also say that if you don't get a chance to get your question answered here, if you would answer it, put it in the chat, we will try to get your question answered after here. And so please, any questions? But we're going to start with asking Rachel to respond to a question or something that was written in the chat earlier. It says, would you address some of the grief around changes to the day-to-day operations we've had to adjust to, i.e. the mandate of wearing full PPE to visit folks, housing facilities and additional expenses, and challenges of access and supply of those PPE products for safety. So if you address that.
Excuse me. Sure, I'll be happy to. So I have a couple of questions before I answer to the person who asked the question. So if you could unmute yourself, I'd like to ask you, what's the most difficult part of when you say, you had to adjust to the mandate of wearing full PPE? Of course, I know generally what you're talking about, but is it Getty? What's the most difficult part of that for you? Is it physically having it on? Is it just the need to do it? Can you unmute yourself? Nope, I don't hear anybody. Okay, so I'm just gonna address it. So first of all, I think it starts with the way we think about needing to do it. I heard a really interesting, very early on in the pandemic, when someone was asked about how they felt that it's sad to see an empty stadium, an empty football stadium because of the pandemic, and just how sad that was. And he said, I look at all of those empty seats, and instead of feeling sad about it, I think about all of the caring people who are protecting each other and me by staying at home right now. And so choosing to reframe or think differently about even wearing PPE, for example, when you see someone wearing a mask, instead of thinking, which is natural to do, think, what kind of world are we that everywhere I go now, I see people in masks. You see someone in a mask now, you can choose to think, they really care about me by wearing one, and I care about them by wearing one as well for them. So part of it is simply changing the way you think about it. And again, recognize that this is temporary. This is not going to be forever. Now, in terms of the cost, one thing I can tell you is that if you get a variety of cloth masks and then you can wash them, you won't need to spend a whole lot of money. They're everywhere now. Like I can't remember who said that, but they're Walmart, they're at Target. Yeah. So they shouldn't even, you can get the disposable ones. And I think it was about $10 or $15 to get a really big one. I think I got one at CVS, and they lasted quite a while. So, and of course, if you're working, they should be provided for you. Adequate number of PPE products should be provided. And if they're not, I would ask leadership wherever you are about the availability of them. Anyone else on the panel have any ideas about ways to effectively, lower costs to get PPE products?
There are organizations that I think give out free masks. Look at 211, see if there's someone there that could let you know about free masks. So there are free masks available too. And if you would just really quickly, she talked about the adjustment. I think you did answer about how do you adjust and how you're reframing. So thank you. Anyone else with that?
I just saw, apparently Jetta can't seem to unmute, but the word is I don't seem to be able to unmute myself. It's the suiting up process, growing weary from having to do this. Yes, for sure. I think what there is to say about that, Jetta, is simply acknowledging that this is taxing, period. There's not a way around everything. This is stressful. It is tiring. I understand you're growing weary. it's natural and normal, and simply allowing yourself to say that is where it starts. Just being able to vet that. And expense, because you're self-employed, I totally get that. So thank you, Justine, for offering some resources. Maybe we can include those for everyone to look at for some inexpensive ways or some free ways to get PPE.
Okay, we have one more question. We have time for one last question. It says, thank you so much, Rachel. It says, how do you balance your time between a spouse, 90-year-old widow mother, 90-year-old widow mother-in-law, and children and grandchildren? And anyone can take that one. And you have about a minute to respond. Toula, Pastor Tracey, I think that might be appropriate. Balance.
I'll refer to Toula for that one.
Okay.
You know what? I think we're all challenged by that, because I read that and went, wow, this woman is busy.
Yeah.
That's a lot to have and take care of. And, you know, I guess really it comes down to balancing your time for yourself, first of all, and having some time to yourself. And then your priorities. You know, you've got your husband. That person, in my view, is your priority. I've got to find that question again, because a bunch of other ones just popped up. Your spouse, your mother, your mother-in-law, kids and grandkids. I hope they're not all in your house at the same
That's all
time.
I'm going to ask. Are they all,
Right.
all living together?
All living together.
Oh,
That's
my goodness.
to contend with. That's a busy, busy household. First of all, I hope you're finding time to get away for 15 minutes to yourself at least every day. Look at your garden, read a book, listen to music, whatever it is that makes you happy. And then you've got to talk to them, you know, and tell them, I'm one person. I can only be divided so many ways. And please just come to me when you really, really need something. And how about even just coming to me to encourage me, love on me, give me that I need to keep on keeping on.
One time I did a presentation for, I think it might have been Elder Source, and for the folks who work the lines and do all the different things. And I asked the question, how many of you are martyrs? And the number of folks, because we don't go there, and the number of folks that said, I don't think anybody else can do it but me, and everything's centered around them. And so that was a recipe for disaster. And they had to admit that they were at the end, a couple had to admit they were at the end of their rope. So the question is, what happens if you go down? And so AARP has a book called Prepare to Care. One of the things in that Prepare to Care guide, and you can download it at aarp.org, Caregiving, or you can order it or go online and look at it. But it talks about what is your plan. So I would encourage you to call people together to put together a plan. And I know that it's not easy, so I'm not trying to oversimplify, but if something is not done, you're not going to last.
Exactly.
And so I know that's very short, but we want you to last, and we want you to be well as well. But it starts with how do you care for yourself and put together a plan and to ask for help. So
if I could add to that, during COVID, just real quick, what is your plan for if you, the caregiver, get COVID? Everybody has to have a plan. We all worry about our loved one getting COVID, but what if you, the caregiver, come down with it? What is your plan? Who's going to take care of your loved one? How are you going to care for yourself? Please look into that.
Someone else, Susan, says, my sister has been helping me, but she and her family have had COVID and have been in quarantine since the middle of November. Thank you for this conference and for your encouragement. Merry Christmas. Susan, once a day of cup of coffee is a quiet spot outdoors. Viewing nature can be very helpful. Very, very simple. Something very simple that cares for you.
And let me just add this, and sometimes you can sneak away to the bathroom. That's my hiding place. Take a little bit of music in there for just about a minute or so, and that'll be your downtime.
Okay, thank you all so much. Hold second, please, if you hold with us. It says if you fill out the poll for a chance to win $50 gift card from Amazon. And Andrea, can you run the poll, please? And I'd like to thank all of our speakers while we're doing that poll. And if you have questions that you didn't get answered, please put them in the chat and we will get an answer back to you as quickly as possible in the response that we'll send out with the email. And we'll have all the information for all of our speakers as well. Thank you again for our speakers. Fill out the post-workshop evaluation poll and it puts your name in the running for a $50 gift card. And Andrea, tell us what we do next.
Hello, everyone. You were just fabulous. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. And it's always a busy time of getting into the holidays. So I am going to leave the poll up for a second. I can see that I've got about 11, 12 people out of 25 that have answered. So I'm going to just leave it up for a minute more. And we will be sending you will get this recording of the program as well as all the contact information. So look for that email, probably Monday, Tuesday of next week. And that will be given to you or sent to you by Candace Christensen, who couldn't be here with us today. I strongly encourage you to tap into the resources that all these organizations are offering. Elder Source, AARP, Toula's Tips for Caregivers. If you haven't checked out her podcast, it's really wonderful. And Rachel, you're fabulous. And Tracey, you were just great today. I learned something myself. So all of you, I wish all of you happy holidays. And if our speakers will stay on the line for just a second, I'm going to close out the poll. And I wish you all a beautiful day.
Will we be able to tell who won or how will they know?
I'm sorry, we will email you the winner next week.
Okay.
A gift card. So expect that. I can't do it while I've got everybody online. So it's done after hours, so to speak.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you all. We sure appreciate you. Happy Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa, happy Festival of Lights, Merry Christmas, and happy holidays. I want to cover it all. Make sure I get everyone in.
I think you did.
Thank you. And thank you all for being here and for staying with us the whole time. Have a great holiday.
Thank you. You
Thank
too.
you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.